We're talking today with Annette Smail of Novato, who was inducted into the Marin Women's Hall of Fame in March of 1991. Annette has been involved in issues of social justice for more than 50 years and has been an influential voice locally, at the state level, and in Washington, D.C. She was honored by the Marin Women's Hall of Fame primarily for a whole lifetime of work, but most importantly, perhaps, for her dedication to the cause of women's rights and gender equality. We're going to talk to her tonight a little bit about her life, how she got from the beginning to where she is now, and I think we might just as well try to discover what inspired her, what were some of the good things and some of the bad things along the way, and we might as well start at the beginning. Annette, do you want to tell me a little bit about your early life and your family?
The beginning, I was brought up in a very loving family, and people always ask me who were my role models in that family. Well, they weren't political activists. My father was an immigrant from Romania, and the most influential things in my life were the books I read.
Where were you born?
I was born in Napa County.
Oh, you're a Californian.
St. Helena, California.
Oh, my goodness.
Yes.
From Romania to St. Helena. That's wonderful.
My father was a pioneer up in Napa Valley.
Was he really?
Yes, he was.
And what did he do up there?
He and my grandfather ran a general merchandise store.
I see. Uh-huh. And your mother, was she from that area?
She was born in San Francisco.
I see. Okay. And your early life was in the small town of Napa?
Until I was 5.
Till you were 5.
And then we moved to San Francisco.
I see. Well, when did you start reading that these books became so important to you?
I can't quite remember, but the two people that influenced me most were Walt Whitman and Gandhi.
Oh, my.
The Mahatma.
When were you aware that they were influences in your life? Early on? Or?
Very early.
Really? Uh-huh.
I've read, I continue to read both of them.
Uh-huh.
In a sense, they're role models for my thinking.
Uh-huh.
And
Pretty good
also
ones.
Martin Luther King Jr.
Mm-hmm. Well, we're going to see as we talk where those role models took you. Let's talk a little bit about, did you have siblings?
A brother. I have a brother who lives in Marin County.
Oh, that's fun. I didn't know that.
Yes.
And what is his name?
Harold Klang.
Harold Klein, okay. And when you moved to San Francisco, where did you live and where did you go to school?
I lived in the Richmond district, and at that time it was all sand dunes practically.
For heaven's sakes,
And I went to school in San Francisco through high school.
Public school?
Public school.
Mm-hmm. Were there any teachers in school that influenced you at all?
Do you know, I can't remember.
Well,
there may have been,
yeah.
But I have no memory of that.
I see. Did you have a happy childhood?
Somewhat. You know what it's like being a child. There are good things and bad things.
Yeah, do you have any?
I was very shy.
Uh-huh.
And a bookworm.
Always?
Yes.
Were you smart in school?
Fairly so.
Knowing you, I would have assumed that you were.
Fairly so. I really, though, it wasn't until I got to college, Berkeley, that the whole world opened up to me.
You want to talk about that a little bit? You went to UC Berkeley and about what age? 16, 17, 18, something
I was
like
about 16. Wait, I have to correct something. I went to San Francisco Community College.
Oh, you did?
Because my parents thought I was too young to go. I graduated from high school at 16. And then when I went to Berkeley, another world opened up to me. All literature. I didn't know what to major in. Everything interested me.
Did you have any sense of direction at all, or were you just...
My parents wanted me to major in econ, economics.
Parents always do.
I tried it, and it wasn't for me. So then I had a major. It ended up political science / journalism.
Journalism. Very
Yeah.
good. And you graduated from Berkeley?
I graduated from Berkeley.
And then what happened?
And then I took got my teaching credential. And this was during World War II. And I was sent out to do practice teaching in Oakland, where a lot of people from the South had come to build ships in the shipyards.
I remember, yeah.
You remember?
Sure.
And teaching was so difficult with those children because they seemed to have come from another culture than I did. And it was a matter of seeing that they had clean hands and clean clothes. And I just gave up teaching at that point. I went back to it later in my life.
How long did you do it that time?
Just finished the practice teaching and called it quits. It wasn't for me at that time and in that place.
So what did you do then?
Saul Alinsky, the great community organizer, was working in Chicago, organizing the community called Back of the Yards. That's when Chicago had stockyards.
Oh, yeah, Back of the Yards.
Back of the Yards. Stockyards aren't there anymore. But there were all types of ethnic groups there. Polish people, blacks, Lithuanians, you name it. They were there, and it was a ghetto, really. And the packing house companies pitted one ethnic group against another. And the working conditions were very bad. And Saul Alinsky organized the community. He organized the churches, the business people, the union, and called his organization the Back of the Yards Neighborhood Council. And when I read about that, I thought, that's for me. I left school and went to work.
Terrific. What did you do?
First, I couldn't get a job with Saul Alinsky, so I needed to make money, so I worked for another community newspaper and did journalism. And then I finally hooked up with Saul Alinsky, and I was a reporter for what was called the Back of the Yards Journal. It was the voice of the Back of the Yards Neighborhood Council.
Sounds terrific.
It was.
How long did you do that, Annette?
I did that for a couple of years till I got ill.
Oh, you got ill.
I got ill.
That's too
I
bad.
had TB.
Oh, for how long were you ill?
Well, at that time, they didn't have any antibiotics for TB. So they put you in a sanitarium
For heaven's sakes.
for 6 months. And I overcame.
Where was that? Back in Chicago?
That was in, yes. Outside of Chicago, there was a sanitarium.
And you got well?
I got well.
And then what happened?
And then my whole life changed because of that. I want to point out that previously, while I worked for the Back of the Yards Council, I was sent to Washington to lobby for the school lunch program, which I think I'm right in saying that the Back of the Yards Neighborhood Council, promoted that program. We're the first to promote the school lunch program. I think I'm correct in that.
Oh,
And also, that was during the war, and meat prices were so high. And I was sent back to lobby for price controls for meat products.
You were
And
just a young girl.
I was about 22.
Oh, isn't that exciting to have
It
done
was.
that? Yeah.
And I was shocked when I went to Washington. It was beautiful. However, it's still the same. There's the ghetto of Washington. You've been there?
Yes.
You know you know about that. I was shocked.
You were shocked by the ghetto.
Yes, I was.
It is a strange setting for
For all
the
those
majesty of our country.
I
isn't it?
know.
Yeah.
It's filled with irony.
You said that your life changed after you were ill. Did you have to leave
I had
off
to leave
working?
Chicago. I came back home.
Back to California.
Right. I married. And my ex-husband, I'm divorced.
Yeah.
My ex-husband was in the Air Force.
I see.
And I have two wonderful children who
Good.
both live in Marin County.
Oh, aren't you lucky?
Aren't I though?
Good. That's wonderful. Did his Air Force career take you away from California, or were you here all
Yes,
the time?
traveled in, lived in Japan for a while, lived in England for a while.
Well,
Moved a million times in the years I was married.
was that an enjoyable period of your life?
It was a difficult period. Moving around with two children and acclimating them to all these moves. But they turned out all right anyway.
I guess they did.
I'd say it was a real challenge. Well, it's a challenge to raise children anyway. You should know that.
Yes, indeed. Indeed. Did you enjoy living overseas?
Yes, yes.
An education, isn't it?
It was an education.
Yeah.
I loved England. Just loved those people.
Your marriage ended after how long?
After 27 years.
27 years. And I know that led you into a new phase of your life.
It did. Well, even before I got divorced, I did go back to work because the kids were in high school.
You did?
Yes.
And what did you do?
I worked for the Marin County Economic Opportunity Council.
Oh, you were
Remember?
back here. Sure, I do. You were back here by then.
Right. In fact, I still sit on the board of Community Action Marin. Which
Oh,
is,
do you?
Yes.
I know that organization well. That's great.
Yeah.
So,
I worked for them as education coordinator.
I see. And you were living where then?
Novato.
In Novato. You've been in Novato a long time.
Right.
Great.
Many years.
Because you live there now too, don't you?
Right.
You still live in Novato.
Right.
So you worked there for the Economic Opportunities Council, and it was during the time that you were working there that your marriage ended?
No, after that. What happened there was we had a problem, a funding problem, and my job was eliminated. I was the education coordinator. I worked with low-income people and their kids in school, and trying to teach people how to help their children. And that funding was stopped. And when it was stopped, a marvelous thing happened. It led to the development of the Nevada Human Needs Center. A group of us in Novato founded the Nevada Human Needs Center because there were no services to Novato, no health and human services to Novato at all. And that led us to found the Nevada Human Needs Center,
Which is still thriving today.
Yes, it's a wonderful institution.
How wonderful to have had a hand in that.
Right,
That's great.
right.
So that was during the time you were living in Nevada.
Right. And then there was a
what
few
next?
Well, a few years following that, I got my divorce, and that led to a non-paying career, to when I learned that with my divorce, I would lose all my benefits. I would lose my medical benefits, and I didn't realize that was happening to women. After 27-year marriage, at the age of 57, to try to get medical insurance, it's difficult.
Sure. Well, I remember you became a very active advocate for a change in that. Do you want to tell us about that?
Yes, and I'd like to say that I always thought, what would Saul Alinsky do in such a case? He was my model, you see. I wasn't organizing a small community. I wanted to organize the entire community of the United States. So step by step, I made it publicly known that I was losing my medical benefits, and tried to get it in as many newspapers as possible.
So you saw it as a national campaign from the beginning?
From the beginning.
Mm-hmm. No, you're not easily intimidated, are you? No. Good for you. So you tried to get this information into the newspapers.
Right, and the IJ helped.
Mm-hmm. Good.
And the Examiner helped. And it's interesting to note that it was called the Midnight Globe. It's one of these sheets you find in supermarkets, you know. They picked up on the Examiner and it went all over the country.
Oh, we darned.
They had me fighting from the foxholes of my home. I'm quoting them.
Not good journalism, but a good image.
and women came out of the woodwork.
Really? Mm-hmm.
They said, yes, this is happening to me. What can we do?
Mm-hmm.
And what I attempted to do was to organize each state. Of course, I didn't make all the states. But to tell women to do what I was doing in my own community, and for them to do the same thing that I was doing, get their problem in the papers.
Mm-hmm.
And I had, people just came out of the woodwork, like I said. They said, oh my, you know, we need it. And I told them, I'd put out flyers, what to do, contact your Congress representative, so forth and so on.
Well, you eventually got a bill passed on this subject, did you not?
Correct.
Can you tell me how you did that?
Well, my local congressman, John Burton, was very sympathetic to the idea.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to him and I said, we need a bill for these women and myself. And he studied it. He said, let me study it over. He studied it, and in 6 weeks he says, Annette, you're right. This is an injustice.
Mm-hmm.
So he wrote the bill, called for hearings. I went to testify. At that time, I was the only grassroots person there to testify.
Mm-hmm.
It was very early. He was very adept at getting an early hearing, which is difficult. And Congresswoman Schroeder sat alongside me and Congressman Burton, and we testified. And but that went on for 5 years. The Pentagon was against it.
Of course.
Of course. And I had lengthy letter writing to various representatives. And during that time, and this is interesting, what happened in the Supreme Court. During that time, in 1980, a case went to the Supreme Court that said no spouse shall get retirement benefits either. So that means we lost two things. Well, thanks to Congresswoman Schroeder and Congressman Burton, they wrote a bill to overturn the Supreme Court decision. So you can overturn the Supreme Court.
It's good to know.
It's good to know. But during that time, while people were getting divorces, women couldn't get a thing. A thing. It was so unjust. Finally, it took 5 years to get a bill passed.
It was
To
reintroduced?
restore, yes, reintroduced and reintroduced and reintroduced. Same thing I'm going through with the bill right now. And the benefits were restored. The language of the bill would allow states to make up their own minds on how they wanted to deal with retirement benefits. And California looks at them as community property. And then the medical rights bill passed, the one I was working on at the same time. It was all incorporated.
Well, that must have been quite a triumph for you.
Oh, it was.
Yeah, terrific.
I felt it was the best thing I ever did in my life because it affected thousands of women.
Of course it did.
Across the
yeah.
country.
Well, I remember that. It got a lot of attention in the press, and there were a lot of women, and I suspect some men, who were really pulling for you. It was
Right.
a battle well worth fighting.
Then I went to the White House Conference on Aging. Governor Brown appointed me as a delegate, and I brought with me a resolution to see that this practice of medical benefits, the loss of medical benefits, be a policy, a general policy affecting all women, those outside the military too, and also retirement benefits.
Were you successful?
I was successful in getting my resolution passed, but the White House Conference on Aging, the 1980 White House Conference on Aging, wasn't too influential in changing public policy. That's because when Reagan came to office, he fought against a lot of benefits that we felt we should have.
Was that when you founded the National Women's
Older Women's Political
Caucus? Yeah.
No, I founded that in 1977 when I was fighting for the medical rights bill. I felt I needed an organization to back, to support that idea. So I founded the Older Women's Political Caucus, which is attached to the National Women's Political Caucus.
And does that still exist?
Oh, yes. I used to be national chair. I stepped down, and now I'm state chair of the Older Women's Caucus. But at the same time, I founded another organization at the very same time in 1977. Incidentally, that was the year of my divorce. It was the year of my introduction of the bill. It was the year of my founding the Older Women's Caucus. And then I founded a group called MED.
Which is?
Medical Equality for Dependents. And that was the...
Yeah, that's the organization.
That's the organization that went nationwide, particularly for that one bill, the military rights bill.
Well, you're now involved in, I don't want to leap ahead, but you're involved in trying to get another bill passed now, are you not?
I certainly am. A bill I've been working on since 1984.
And tell us about that.
I'm glad you asked. That's the bill, which was just reintroduced in June, this month, by Congresswoman Boxer. It's an idea initiated in 1984, which would establish a federal council on women to be an advisory body to the Congress. I felt it was needed for a number of reasons. Most countries in the world have high-level status of women's commissions. We don't in the United States. We used to have. From Kennedy, from 1961, when President Kennedy appointed Eleanor Roosevelt to the status of women's commission on the federal level, to 1980, we had a commission on women.
I didn't realize
at the top level. I know a lot of people don't. And my idea is to establish a federal council on women as an advisory body to the Congress, mandated by law.
Do you have any other things that you're pushing for at this time?
Well, on the state level.
I knew there must be something.
On the state level, I brought to the attention of the state legislature 2-3 years ago the Gender Equity Racial Balance Bill, which would provide that appointments to statewide panels have a balance of gender and race.
Are you equally dedicated to both of those bills, the one that you are trying to get through the National Congress and this one that you're trying to get through the state? Are they equally important to you, or?
Oh, the one in Congress is most important.
That's the one where you...
And besides, there are other groups that are working now on the state legislation.
Good. In
Right.
the beginning, you were pretty much alone, and now I guess you've established quite a lot of support for
Right.
your ideas.
That's correct.
Wonderful. Yeah.
That makes me feel good.
Yeah. We were talking before the program started about trying to identify maybe what you are the proudest of in your career as a political activist, and do you have any comments on that?
The medical rights bill. I'm very proud of. And someday I hope to be proud of the passage of the Federal Council on Women.
Well, I'm sure we all wish you luck. As a person who is, I think, a role model for a lot of women in the community, I would love to have you maybe think about what you might want to say to younger women who are maybe looking at some of the same issues that you looked at when you were a younger woman. What would you want to tell them?
First of all, I'd want to say that things are so different now than when I was 22. A lot of women's consciousnesses have been raised. And for them to keep watching their psyches, to keep up with the movements, the women's movement, as it progresses. Right now we're undergoing a backlash. And they have to understand that these things come and go, and not to give up. And I'd like them to be aware of how easy it is to become a puppet of convention, and how they must always look into their psyches and keep changing all the time to keep up with events, and don't let convention deaden their spirits.